And if the truth is involved, then I'm not even allowed to be worried. What would I be worried about? It's those that traffic in falsehoods that gotta worry about me, because I'll say something.
Katt Williams didn't just shake the table. He flipped it over, lit it on fire, and dared anyone to pick up the pieces. In his latest jaw-dropping interview, the comedian didn't mince words. According to Katt, the entire industry is doing everything it can to make sure Diddy doesn't talk. Not because they love him, because they're terrified. And if you've been following even a fraction of what's been happening inside that courtroom, you'd understand why. Williams claims that if Diddy starts naming names, the fallout won't stop at the Hollywood Hills. He says the FBI would be forced to arrest half of Tinseltown and possibly a few people in Washington, D.C. as well. This isn't just about one man's sins. This is about a system, a network, a fortress of fame, power, and privilege that's starting to crack under the pressure of its own secrets.
I don't know this, but it just seems very suspicious when you go through and you look at in the history of different people that can make you go away if you listen, I've worried about some of the things that I talk about on my show.
We've seen whispers like this before. Rumors, quiet settlements, hush money deals sealed with NDAs and nods in candlelit back rooms, but never anything this loud, this unfiltered, and this dangerous. Katt isn't just pointing at Diddy, he's pointing at everyone who stood beside him, flew to his parties, signed his checks, and protected him for decades. If Diddy's the grenade, Katt's yanked the pin. And from what we're hearing, Hollywood's scrambling to contain the blast radius. This isn't some fringe theory. It's coming from someone who's been chewed up and spat out by the very machine he's exposing. He's been blacklisted, blackballed, and depending on who you ask, even targeted. So when he says there's a cover-up in motion to keep Diddy quiet, we should all be paying attention.
I'm supposed to come in and restore order because that's my position. The fact that it's ignored by the clowns because they're all in the same frat, comedically, like, that's all well and good. I don't care nothing about none of that.
The stakes? Nothing short of Hollywood's survival. Because here's the terrifying part. If what Katt says is true, then Diddy isn't being kept out of prison because he's innocent. He's being kept out because he's the industry's most dangerous liability. They don't need him free, they need him silent. Because a convicted Diddy is one bad week away from flipping on everyone. And we're not just talking about rappers and stylists. We're talking studio heads, political donors, private equity big shots with billion-dollar deals tied to streaming platforms and media conglomerates. The kinds of people who can reroute a national conversation with a single phone call. If even a quarter of what's been alleged comes out in full, it could rip the entire structure down.
I'm one of the chosen high-ranked, know-the-dirt individuals, right? And so dirt responds as they should when the vacuum walks in.
Nah, come on. Are you a rapper? Can you rap on the side?
Clearly, sir.
And right in the center of it all, a secret pact. That's the phrase being whispered in corridors and back alleys of the entertainment world. A desperate, elite-level alliance built around protecting the legacy and silence of one man. Sources close to multiple major record labels insist that meetings have been held, phones wiped, lawyers retained in advance. One ex-road manager who's worked with A-listers coast to coast told us bluntly, "There's a list. They all know who was there. If that list leaks, it's over." Another claims that at least one major film executive flew to DC twice in the last 6 months, not for business, but to smooth things over in case Diddy's trial went sideways. We're not saying the judges were involved, but let's just say we've seen powerful people walk free for far less. And we haven't even gotten to the freak-offs. Yes, those infamous parties Diddy allegedly orchestrated that turned out to be less parties and more, how shall we put this, industrial-grade pleasure rituals. The prosecution described them as elaborate and produced performances, complete with male workers, mood enhancers, surveillance, and enough personal lubricant to fill a swimming pool. Over 1,000 bottles, to be exact. The phrase baby oil has never sounded more sinister. These weren't just behind closed doors affairs. They were organized, scheduled, filmed, and, if you believe former insiders, attended by some very famous faces. Models, rappers, athletes, tech founders. Some just watched. Others, well, Cassie Ventura's testimony painted a chilling picture of what participation really meant.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, "You don't do a freak-off, I'm going to release one of the freak-off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate you."
If the defense wants us to believe this was all consensual, that Diddy and his partners were just living the swinger lifestyle, but let's not kid ourselves. The women who testified, Cassie, Jane, and others, didn't just describe wild nights. They described systematic manipulation, sleepless marathons, substances slipped in without knowledge, emotional blackmail backed up by explicit videos. And if Diddy really has all that on tape, that's not leverage. That's nuclear. One encrypted hard drive away from triggering a scandal that could make Epstein Island look like a networking brunch. So what happens if Diddy decides to cooperate? What if he makes a deal before his sentencing in October? Prosecutors might have failed to nail him for racketeering or trafficking, but they landed just enough to put him in prison for up to 20 years. His team is arguing hard for bail and a luxury home detention, electronic monitoring, the works. But let's not miss the subtext. The moment he walks out of that cell, the moment he breathes fresh air again, everyone who's ever stepped foot into one of those velvet-roped hotel suites is going to feel it in their throat. Because if Diddy thinks he's been left to rot, if he feels betrayed by the very people he once protected, he might just return the favor.
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
There are already murmurs that some top-tier names, yes, household names, have reached out through intermediaries. Some are lawyering up, some are apparently erasing entire iCloud accounts, and at least one prominent actor recently pulled out of a high-profile streaming deal without explanation. Coincidence? Maybe. But let's not forget, during jury selection, names like Ye, Michael B. Jordan, and Kid Cudi came up. Only one of them testified, but all were mentioned. Why? What do they know? Who else was watching, filming, or facilitating behind the scenes? The truth is, the guest list for these freak-offs could read like a red carpet roll call. If even a single list surfaces, it's not just a scandal, it's an extinction-level event. That's why insiders believe the pressure campaign to get Diddy out of jail isn't about saving him. It's about protecting everyone else. One former PR consultant told us there are already scripts being rewritten, press tours canceled, and awards campaigns put on ice. Everyone's in wait-and-see mode, they said. If he goes scorched earth, no one's safe. Not even the people who thought they were just passing through. And that might explain the sudden eerie silence from many of Diddy's once loyal peers. Where's the public support, the social media solidarity? It's vanished, just like the files his team reportedly removed from several LA properties just before the raids.
I'm sorry, I'm just I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck during those years. You're still stuck 21 years later.
Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team is spinning hard, arguing that he's being singled out unfairly, that no one in American history has ever been jailed just for hiring adult entertainment across state lines, that it's an outdated law being used as a blunt weapon. But again, that's just surface drama. The real story is the fear, not of what Diddy did, but of what Diddy knows. And right now, his silence may be the only thing standing between Hollywood and a full-blown implosion. But the real panic isn't in the courtrooms. It's in the bedrooms, the green rooms, and the guarded vaults behind studio walls. According to multiple sources close to the investigation, Diddy didn't just throw parties, he documented them. And not in the social media memories kind of way. We're talking about recordings, intimate footage, allegedly collected over years, compiled, encrypted, and stored as leverage. Cassie Ventura testified that Diddy filmed their encounters without consent. Prosecutors referred to it as blackmail material, and if even a fraction of that archive still exists, it could be the most dangerous insurance policy in entertainment history.
Right now is going through a number of different reasons. Again, very quick reporting indicates that the judge is citing to the defense attorney's own statements during the case that Sean Combs is a violent person, has had violent personal relationships. But of course, the defense said that doesn't mean he's guilty of racketeering. It looks like the judge is now using those statements to say he should be.
Imagine the nerves tightening across the industry right now. How many power players were caught in those lenses? How many secrets were casually whispered in those rooms while cameras rolled quietly in the corner? Think about it. An actor with a squeaky clean family brand, a studio head mid-deal with a kids network, a streaming executive who spent millions on anti-harassment campaigns. What happens if they're seen on tape, laughing, participating, or worse? The idea that one man holds digital evidence of the darkest moments of his inner circle is horrifying enough. But in Diddy's case, it's plausible. After all, he had the money, the tech, and crucially, the motive. And this isn't new behavior for the upper crust. We've heard whispers for years about so-called insurance files in the music world. But what makes this different is how many victims say they were coerced, not just into the acts, but into the recordings themselves. One former assistant who spoke under condition of anonymity claimed Diddy used to brag about having backup for anyone who ever crossed him. The implication? If you betrayed him, your past would come back to haunt you, frame by devastating frame. And now that Diddy's back is against the wall, those files may not stay buried.
He cornered me. And then he asked me, with his arm up, he asked me, "How you doing?" I'm kind of like, wow, what the heck? Very uncomfortable. And then he rubbed his hand down my breast. He said, "If you need anything at all, you let me know."
And let's not forget what happened in March. Federal agents raided not one but two of Diddy's properties. Reports say they found thousands of bottles of lubricant, enhancement pills, and specialty lighting rigs, but no confirmation yet on whether any hard drives were recovered. If those drives were moved, hidden, or duplicated before the raids, that means someone still has them. And if Diddy believes he's being abandoned by the very people he protected with silence, the temptation to press send might become irresistible. Which brings us back to Katt Williams, the wild card in all this. His claims have made headlines, sure, but they've also raised eyebrows. Is Katt speaking truth to power? Or is he advancing an agenda of his own? Some insiders are beginning to wonder whether Williams' high-profile accusations are part of something deeper. A few former label execs have pointed to his long-standing grudge against the mainstream industry, the same machine that blacklisted him, mocked him, and, in his own words, tried to erase him. Could this be payback? Decades in the making?
When people are against the Illuminati, then they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them.
It's a fair question, because while Katt may be acting as a whistleblower, others suspect he's also serving as the mouthpiece for a quiet alliance of burned-out insiders. We heard from a former bodyguard, a retired stylist, and even a choreographer who all say they were used and discarded by Combs' empire. Are they feeding Katt the receipts behind closed doors, coordinating from the shadows to bring down a man they see as the face of everything rotten in entertainment? If so, we may be watching a carefully orchestrated takedown, not just of Diddy, but of an entire culture built around invincibility and image control. The deeper we dig, the murkier it gets. Because even if Katt's accusations are grounded in truth, his motives might still be tangled. Is he a crusader for justice? Or a grenade being tossed by the opposition? Could this be a power struggle cloaked in virtue? One LA-based talent manager called it Game of Thrones meets TMZ, and she wasn't wrong. The stakes are existential, because if the dominoes fall, they won't fall neatly. They'll collapse sideways, taking down record labels, talent agencies, media giants, and maybe even political donors whose names appeared in call logs and flight manifests tied to Diddy's inner circle.
And what's really going to be interesting is the parade of celebrities who we expect to be mentioned and or called into that courtroom. You know, people who we hadn't heard about prior, like Mike Myers, you know, Austin Powers, Mike Myers. Why is he getting called? Why is he on the witness list? That'll be fascinating. And then, of course, there are the no-name, quote unquote, women who are going to have to find every ounce of courage they have.
And then there's the case of Maureen Comey, the former lead prosecutor in Diddy's federal trial, whose abrupt dismissal sent quiet shockwaves through legal and political circles. Comey, a seasoned attorney and the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, had built a reputation for taking on complex, high-stakes cases, including the prosecutions of Jeffrey Epstein's inner network. Her removal from the Diddy case came without explanation, just days after delivering a scathing argument at his bail hearing. Officially, there was no comment. Unofficially, the theories are multiplying and none of them paint a comforting picture. Some insiders now believe her ouster wasn't just a reshuffle, it was a warning, a signal to anyone inside the system who might be tempted to push too hard, dig too deep, or follow the wrong lead too far. If a prosecutor with a legacy name and a winning track record can be yanked off a high-profile case with no public justification, then what does that say about who's really pulling the strings? And more importantly, who they're protecting. In a case already brimming with accusations of hidden alliances and shadow deals, Comey's exit feels less like bureaucracy and more like damage control. Adding fuel to the fire, multiple legal observers noted that her departure came just as key sealed evidence was expected to be reviewed in chambers. Footage, communications, and potentially damning witness statements that had not yet been presented in open court. With Comey gone, those files could now be buried, redacted, or dismissed under technicalities. Was her exit timed to coincide with a suppression effort, or was she removed because she was unwilling to play by the unspoken rules of high-level entertainment prosecution?
Let's talk about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible.
There's also the question of timing. Comey had spent months constructing a meticulous case that spanned years of allegations. Her courtroom demeanor was described as surgical, measured, but relentless. So to see her vanish mid-battle with the defense pressing for bail and prosecutors scrambling to recalibrate sent a clear message. Stability is an illusion in this war. And if the prosecution can be compromised at this level, then what hope is there for accountability beneath it? Even veteran attorneys are now whispering about external pressures and unexpected meetings that may have factored into the decision. What began as a trial about freak-offs and power abuse is rapidly morphing into something bigger, more insidious. Comey's removal suggests the forces surrounding this case may extend well beyond Hollywood or even the Department of Justice. This might be the first sign that Diddy's reach, or the reach of those invested in his silence, stretches into the very architecture of institutional authority. And if that's true, we're no longer just watching a celebrity scandal. We're watching the scaffolding around elite impunity creak under its own weight.
Look at Diddy, for instance. Let's take a look at him. Let's take a look at. He has videos. He has videos of the parties. Now, what I've heard, which I don't know how much of it is in mainstream media, I don't really follow the story that much. But what I've heard from friends that are attorneys, friends of mine that have represented me before, agents and so on, is there's a bidding war going on.
And if there really is a list, like some sources claim, if there's a ledger of names, dates, hotel suites, and recordings, it's not just about embarrassment anymore. It's about criminal exposure, financial ruin, lawsuits, canceled projects, broken NDAs, and burned bridges. It's about families who thought their secrets were safe and fans who believed their idols were untouchable. In this new phase, the freak-offs are no longer the story, they're just the setting. The real headline is what happens when a man like Diddy, cornered, betrayed, and still holding the matches, decides it's not just his world that deserves to burn. Meanwhile, back in the courtroom, Diddy's legal team is working overtime to secure his release ahead of sentencing. $50 million in bond, private security, passport revoked, travel restricted. They're throwing everything at the wall to keep him out of that cell. And we're left wondering, is this about comfort or control? Does the pressure to free him stem from compassion or from panic? Because as long as Diddy's locked away, unpredictable and angry, there's no telling what he might do, especially if the people who once called him family are now distancing themselves, deleting photos and pretending they were never that close to begin with.
We are following breaking news out of New York City. The jury in the Sean Diddy Combs racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking trial has reached a verdict on 4 of the 5.
Remember, this is a man who built his career on control, of image, of access, of narrative. Now the script has flipped. For the first time, he's not calling the shots. And with sentencing coming up fast, the stakes couldn't be higher. If he's released, does he retreat into silence or does he come out swinging, naming names and exposing everyone who once benefited from his rise? And if he stays behind bars, what's to stop him from turning his insurance policy into a weapon? After all, if he goes down, why wouldn't he take the whole glittering tower with him? Hollywood is nervous, and rightfully so. The golden facade is cracking. Behind it lies a fortress of secrets held together by silence, favors, and fear. But once that dam breaks, there's no putting the water back. So here's the question we're all asking now. If Diddy falls, who falls with him? And is Hollywood ready for the tidal wave that's coming? Drop a comment below and tell us who you think is next. And hey, if you're still clinging to your illusions about the red carpet crowd, you might want to let go. Fast. Stay bold, stay curious, and keep your receipts. We'll see you in the next one.